Hi and Assalamualaikum to Sebastian and also my fellow friends who are watching this video presentation. We are group number 3 and the topic we have chosen is MENTARI program. So before we start presenting our video presentation, I would like to introduce my group members. The first presenter will be Nurafiqah. She will explain about the problem cause and also the background of the program. The second presenter will be SITI Nurafiqah. She will explain about the source of problem and also the recommendation. The third presenter will be myself. My name is NURSHARINA. I will be presenting the strength, weaknesses analysis and also 1 point from strategy. The fourth presenter will be NURUL NADHIRAH. She will explain about the opportunities, threat analysis and 1 point from strategy. And the last presenter will be PUTRI Nurafiqah. She will explain the challenges and also the conclusion.
Problem cause. Under research of World Health Organization, it have estimated that depression are on the second largest illness in the world. It involving 1 out of 5 women and 12 men have depression. Some people still assume the depression happens because of their flaw in their personality, or it can be fixed by themselves, and also that medicine will go on for life. Not every depressed person or psychiatrist experience every symptom. Some of them may experience a few symptoms, which the severity of symptoms may be vary among individuals. The depressive disorder can occur in families, but until recently it was not entirely established if people had inherited a susceptibility to such disorder. Many who study depression have been able to establish that to some degree depressive disorder can be inherited. Preventing depression is an area that needs an attention. Most lifelong interventions have provided evidence of a decrease in elevated case of depressive symptoms. Some of professional approaches to depression prevention rely on a variety of activities to improve protective factors and rising risk factors, cited by Wilson in 2011. Source of problem that have been identified is there is a lack of awareness on treating the person with depression. Living with depression can be difficult, but medication can help to improve the quality of their life. The person with depression may be able to effectively handle symptoms with one type of treatment, have to find a combination of treatments works best to them, cited by MENTARI 2008. The patient was admitted for work and was stressful for the employer because they was really committed to the job. After participating in a program and training introduced by MENTARI, schizophrenia patients were absorbed into the labor market 2 years ago as a food cart assistant in Putrajaya. There is at least 1 MENTARI in state in the country, and they are managed by Department of Psychiatry and Mental Health in the nearest hospital. The treatment in MENTARI is led by psychiatrists, and team members include medical officers, occupational therapists, nurses, and medical social workers. The volunteers also provide assistance in non-clinical activities. There is a lot that we need to learn on challenges are plenty, but they are definitely giving their best shot and looking forward to sharing their journeys with others to help on the mental health depression. The MENTARI system depends on former nurses, counselors, and other stakeholders in the healthcare sector to volunteer as a career trainers. The plan partners are with local NGOs and prospective employers wish to improve employment opportunities for patients while at the same time reducing stigma and discrimination. In sharing stories about the success of its participants in employment, the program further reduced stigma within society and among additional employers which had undergone the mental illness problem. The Psychiatric Association also provides the program funding to collect the clinical data for rehabilitation, cited by TRIS on 2011. One of MENTARI's stakeholders, a London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine Centers for Global Mentality and the World Health Organization Mental Health and Drug Abuse Department. This multidisciplinary group supports the members in making the most of the network. In addition, it is co-led by the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine Center for Global Mentality, Health and the Mental Health of Drug Abuse Department of the World Health Organization. Each partner offers the management expertise that is relevant to overall objective. MENTARI also collaborate with organizations which is beating mental stigma that provide peer support and medical guidance to youth in order to provide them opportunities to sustain and improve mental well-being. It also collaborates with WISE counseling and psychotherapy, which the objective is to promote education and support vulnerable children, young people, and adult psychological well-being and mental health. This program goes on par with its unique names, which MENTARI is a new approach initiated by the Ministry of Health Malaysia to improve outreach and reintegration of people with mental health problems. A lot of people are not aware on the existence of this program while it already been exists on 2011. The first MENTARI was initiated in 2011 in Putrajaya. Mainly due to funding from the government in 2014, the number had increased to 20 with Mentari Selayang acting as the central coordinating center. Mentari's main activities are individual placement and support-supported employment, assertive community treatment, and support groups for patients and their carriers. In 2016 to 2018, 12 Mentaris will be involved in the pilot phase of the Mentari IT system. It is a clinical IT-based nationwide system which has its own data warehouse. This research and development have been carried on by them to improve work processes and facilitate more research. Mentari has provided a platform for Ministry of Health staff to shift from curative to preventive and recovery-based ones.
Good day everyone, my name is SITI Nurafiqah and I'll be talking about the source of problem of this issue. There are a number of cases that are triggering the mental health problems in Malaysia. Homelessness, layoffs, burnout, and social exclusion had created a brilliant storm to trigger mental issues in the battle against the deadly COVID-19 disease outbreak. According to Professor Amir Siddiq Aminuddin, a psychiatrist from University Malaya Specialist Center Association, he predicts a gradual increase in psychological illness in the second week during the Movement Control Order (MCO) made by the government on 18 March to compress the curve of infection in the region. Over the past 10 years, the number of Malaysians encountering mental health problems such as low mood, anxiety, tension has tripled from 10.7% in 1996 to 29.2% in 2015. Other sources of problem refer to when oil price fall, massive closing of companies, and increasing restrictions on social media, which have resulted to reducing profits for smaller companies. The first department involved in the mentioned social problem would be the Department of Social Welfare (JKMM), or known as Jabatan Kebajikan Masyarakat. JKMM was established in 1946 and has been through several structural changes ever since. The department started with its participation in addressing conflicts arising from the World War II. Since then, it has extended their responsibilities and duties to include prevention and rehabilitative care on social issues and community development. The first objective for Department of Social Welfare is to provide protection and rehabilitation to department's target groups. Besides, they will also develop a community through attitudinal change and building capacity towards self-reliance. Other than that, their aim is to create a caring society. Another objective is in order to enhance their community's well-being through professional social welfare services, social development, and a strategic sharing of responsibilities. Another objective of JKMM is to enhance this community's well-being through professional social welfare services, social development, and a strategic sharing of responsibilities. Regarding to the ministry that involved in this program, Mentari is a new approach initiated by the Ministry of Health Malaysia (MOH) in 2011. The primary goal of the Ministry of Health Malaysia is to help individuals to achieve, preserve, and maintain a certain level of medical status in order to further enable the development of a productive lifestyle socially and economically. This could be accomplished by implementing or providing promotional and preventive approaches other than efficient treatment and recovery services that are appropriate and effective, while giving priority to less privileged. Even though the government had actually given 1% tax exemption policy if an employer hire physically or mentally disabled person, still less than 0.3% of employers have taken that opportunity. These Mentari program do helping people who have a mental health and give them chances to build a new life. Undoubtedly, Mentari can really be considered as a brilliant approach made by Ministry of Health in order to reduce stigma and discrimination among mental health patients.
Moving on to the next point, which is SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And SWOT analysis is important for the organization to analyze and build the organization's framework. The first strength of the Mentari program is it can help the patient to increase the quality of life. In 2017, according to Mentari records, a total of 377,238 of disabled in mental categories experienced employment support programs in 12 Mentari centers. Individual Placement and Support (IPS) is a supporting employment model for a person with mental illness such as bipolar and also depression. Without Mentari program, they are not able to work at any store or restaurants due to their mental health. Most of the employer worried they might be hard to control if they have taken them to work together. However, a working patient will be monitored by paramedics and nurses who will evaluate once or twice a week to decide if they were having work or health issues. They also can increase their quality of life from time to time. Before this, they might feel left out from the community because of their mental health, but when the Mentari program was introduced, they have a new chances to live a normal life with the help from the doctor, nurses, and psychiatry in Mentari program. With such a program, they have an opportunity to work like others and can help support themselves and live independently without hoping from their family members to support them. The second strength of MENTARI program is low cost of treatment. The MENTARI program was introduced to provide patients with continuous treatment in a simpler and more accessible way within the society. With the help from this MENTARI program, people can seek help from any MENTARI center in Malaysia. Since MENTARI is one of the government's initiative to help patients who suffer mental health, so the total cost to pay is only RM1 for registration and RM5 for a consultation session. The cost for the students, government staff, person with a disability, and government retirees is free. Estimation for the mental health treatment will costly around 6,000 a year for a treatment. It can be a reason why the public don't want to go for the treatment since the cost is expensive. The cost was incurred by the government to improve the mental health services to the community. When the cost treatment is low, people do not hesitate to get the treatment and the number of reports received will increase, which means that they are being open about their mental health. And at the same time, society become aware about this program and use their services. The second largest health issues affecting Malaysians after heart disease is expected to be a mental illness. By having a low-cost treatment, hopefully Malaysians will take care of their mental health and using service provided for them. The first weakness of MENTARI program is low level of access to health services. Do individuals access services at the appropriate level? The number of mental health professionals with a ratio of 1 secretary per 1,000 is low, and in 2018, only 15 clinical psychologists were employed in the public health services sector. Until March 2017, there were only 381 secretaries in Malaysia. With the patients seek assessment and treatment, there is a significant shortage of mental health services in both public and private sector. According to Harvard report, in 2015, Malaysia spends only 1.3% of its government health budget on mental health, compared to the international average of 2.8%. According to Ministry of Health, MENTARI has 22 centers across the country in 2017, and not all regions has this center to be accessed by the community. The level of access to health services are insufficient, and people who are living in a rural area might face difficulties to seek treatment. The government has to take action for these issues to help the community to have a better accessibility in the future. The second weakness of MENTARI is unsatisfied level of awareness about this program. Strong social stigma regarding mental health issues from a cultural point of view shaped by misunderstanding lead the patient to suffer in silence. Many people do not aware about this program even it has been a while after being introduced. The government should promote the MENTARI program to the public, especially when it involves the employment of the patient. It found that 90% of patients with a mental health condition did not get a job even after going through the individual placement and support employment at MENTARI Center. People don't want to take a risk to hire people with mental health problems because of stigma arises upon them. Most firms do not know how to interact with people facing mental health problems, and due to these problems, the employer does not want to hire them even they have a potential. Mental health issues can happen to anyone, and that is why it is important to educate the public about mental health, so in the future, they know what kind of action they need to take and what government does to help these people who suffer from mental health.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. I am Nurul NADHIRAH binti Muhammad Zaid will be presenting the opportunity part, threat part, and also one of the strategic choice. So, opportunity can be defined as advantage or something that pushing the activity to take place forcibly, where clearly it has a positive and preferred features. So, the first opportunity that had been found in MENTARI program is the individual job placement and support, IPS-SE. So as the MENTARI's objective to assist the members of it, the opportunity that can be seen from this program in terms of the employment is when the guarantee from MENTARI that those workers will keep getting treatment and assistance from this MENTARI program had assured employers to hire this group of individuals that have the mental illness problems. So individual placement and support, IPS, is formally known as the evidence-based practice support, supported employment, SE, with the prime objective in helping the people with severe mental illness to adapt and support them in doing their job. In addition, they will encourage the patient's interest and enhance their confidence while working to ensure that they will keep consistent in such a long term, which this was not highlighted by the traditional approaches that ignoring the work readiness in those people that through screening and do not considering any lengthy assessments. When I'm working, I'm part of the world. I'm part of the real world. I feel connected. Having a job gives me stability. I have something to look forward to every day. This is the example of the mental illness patients says, where MENTARI's effort in receiving the job for these people actually had created some new space or place for them in improving their health status by having something that will keep them busy and enjoy their life. The existing cave will ensure that they will not get more stress. Instead, they will be able to cope with the pressure greatly. We can refer this situation as one of the first approach to make them used and able to adapt with the normal world without having any assistance and observations anymore from the specialist. In simple words, the job is actually can become one of their treatments. So the next opportunity that become a catalyst and help MENTARI program in achieving the targets and goals is the tax reduction that was introduced by the government, in which as employment support had become one of the priority in Malaysia for individuals that facing this mental illness. So this tax deduction will be applicable and imposed for the employer that hiring or employ these disabled persons in their company. This tax deduction is one of the efforts made by the government, specifically the Women, Family and Community Development Ministry, where Hanayo had encouraged both public and private sector to hire these disabled persons. So these employers will enjoy a double tax deduction with hiring them. So apart from that, the single deductions also will be received by the employers for any modifications or improvement had been made to their buildings. And for any training courses that we provided for these disabled workers, the double deductions will be given. Therefore, we can see that these situations not only will help those people, but also reduce the unemployment rate in the country by reserving this empty space with the people that having this mental illness. Next is threat that we believe as environments that risk the actualizations of an activity, which refer to the inconvenient situations. So the first threat is misrepresented by the media, where as we know that the journey for any person that is suffering from mental health is not easy, as accepting the advice and motivational words from others or specialists. It is more than that. Living in social stigma is really suffering that actually may be contributed by the media. The example of stigma that had to be faced by these people is that public belief that this mental issue only succumbed by the weak people, and they always label as crazy, oversensitive, lacking in faith, and also overdramatic. Therefore, we cannot deny that TV shows fail in portray and illustrate the real meaning of mental health, and still have the misconception and unfortunately appear it to all the people out there. So the mental illness character synonym with the peculiar and dangerous, where we can notice that it is inconvenient to say that antagonists commit the crime because they are crazy. This is also supported by the Mental Health Foundation Association in United Kingdom, that where these situations is worsened by the media, as their reports frequently relate to the mental illness with violence, dangerous. They also refer to the criminals, evil, and unable to live normal like the others, the normal people like us. So the second threat is discrimination against the mental illness patients, where individuals living with this illness should receive the same chance and right like everyone else. The social stigma attached to mental health issue had led to this discrimination, which it exists and present in several situations like employment and also social relationship. The first discrimination is in terms of employment, where on 2016, a plan of actions for healthcare for 2016 until 2020 had been presented by the Health Ministry, mentioning that about 90% of the individuals suffering from mental health unable to get a job, even after they had gone through IPSE that was provided by MENTARI. The report shows that even the government, which is the MENTARI, had given the best in helping those patients have a better life through the job, but the effort will still result in failure if the employer still practicing this discrimination act. The employers tend to avoid in hiring those people with mental illness patients, as they were seen as incompetent. Despite that, it was reported also that those individuals that able to get a job were getting unequal treatment by receive a low wage or less promotable. Next is the social isolations, also one of the forms of discrimination that had to be faced by individuals with mental health issue, as social relation is a big part of role in mental health and psychological well-being. Making a distance from them will make the things worse. Therefore, the discrimination is actually trap the people in an illness cycle, which all the MENTARI effort will be no use at. Strategic choice being said as decisions that will decide the future strategy of firms or organizations, where it must be directed to the clear assessment of alternative, where it should be the best and the most suitable alternative to the situations. Therefore, in order to choose the best one, the root of the problem should be tackled. Based on the SWOT analysis, it clearly be seen that the aligning between the strength and opportunity, where both elements were fully supported by the governments, in which we can notice the power of the government's role in this program, while the weaknesses and threat that had to be faced by this program generally due to the public's role and the weak cooperations among them. Therefore, the alternative roughly can be designed through it, where the collaboration from the government and the public could be the effective strategy. The first strategy or alternative that could be considered is the public perception should be controlled and assessed through the right meaning of mental illness. There is no other effective way than monitor the media. As we know that media is a powerful tool in disseminating and sharing the information, as it a medium of communications for almost majority of the people nowadays. The roles of media is crucial as a government, where they will help the society to have a better understanding about what actually going through by those patients, including the people's view regarding the mental illness, the caretaker, and also mental health employees. The TV programs related to mental illness patients could reduce the stigma and discriminations, where by highlighting the achievement management of mental illness through the interview with recovered patients and their guardian as to make the public realize the challenges of managing the mental illness patients. And also, these kinds of TV shows will able to give a hope for the mental illness patients out there. In addition, the media roles also including the effort of MENTARI in humanizing the mental illness, where the media must deliver the correct information about this illness is real, common, and the most important is it is treatable. The emphasizing about the active role of the mental illness patients in the community may be one of the effective stories to be portrayed, as to ensure the public will not practicing the discrimination towards those patients after realizing that those patients have important positions in the communities.
The second strategy is to improve the integrated mental health approach into primary care. Improving integrated mental health into primary care requires a lot of effort, but it can give a positive impact on society. In the early 1990s, Malaysia started integrating mental health services into primary healthcare to achieve the highest attainable level of mental health care. Specialized community-based programs known as MENTARI has been set up to bring specialized services closer to the citizen. Adequate training is required for the primary care staff. Pre-service and in-service training of primary care staff in areas of mental health is a crucial requirement for integrating mental health. Pre-service training will provide basic diagnosis and recovery training for major mental disorder. Staff must be learn how to communicate and how to empower and train patients to self-manage and obey their treatment plans at home. Health workers, however, must also practice skills and over time receive specialist supervision. Primary care needs to be supported by mental health professionals and facility specialists. Integrating mental health services into primary care is necessary, but must be supported by complementary services, in particular components of secondary care, to which primary care staff can turn for referrals, guidance and supervision. This support could come from community mental health center, hospital at the secondary level, or professional practitioners, particularly working within the primary care system. Primary care services are usually the most available, affordable and appropriate to communities. Where mental health is integrated as part of these services, access is continued to improve and mental disorders are more likely to be identified and treated. The government's commitment to integrated mental health care and a formal policy and legislation that put this commitment into practice is a key of success.
Okay, now let's move on to our first major problem, which is in helping the mental illness patient in getting jobs through the supported employment program. So up until 2017, a total of 377,238 of orang kurang upaya OKU or disabled people under the mental illness category were accepted to get treatment in the 12 MENTARI centers. However, only 15 out of 285 were able to obtain jobs, showing that the stigma towards the people with mental illness problem is still there, and this causes private sectors to be reluctant to offer them jobs. So as you can see, mental illness stigma in Malaysia is still extremely high to be compared with the other countries such as Japan and also United States. So the reason why MENTARI wants their patients to be able to have jobs is because of the fact that it works as indicator for the patients to feel that they are actually slowly recovering. However, sadly, people still have the common views that they tend to act violently, throw tantrum and commit scary actions, especially to the closest people whenever they are angry. With this, the employers are afraid that this situation will jeopardize their other employees and most importantly, their customers. There is also a 1% tax exemption policy if the employees hire a physically or mentally disabled person. However, sadly, only 0.3% of them are willing to take this opportunity. The fact that the employers do not want to help the mentally ill person in offering them jobs, it makes it harder for the MENTARI program to place the patient in the workplace environment and for the patients themselves to prove that they are actually capable of improving themselves. Okay, now let's move on to our second challenge faced by MENTARI, which is lack of staff and limited services access. So one of the main activities conducted by MENTARI is the IPSSE and assertive community treatment, whereby it prepares a platform for the patient who have the will to work but are suffering with the mental illness problem. So in MENTARI, only one IPS employer will handle a total of 20 patients that require intensive support, while 50 patients that require regular support. So since MENTARI focuses more on the functional recovery for self-enhancement and not through medication, hence a patient is not fully symptom recovered. So what we can see from here is that one employee to handle a huge number of patients is definitely not enough, since every patient requires focused attention due to their mental state of health. So not only that, most of the patients with mental issues have society anxiety, which make them uncomfortable to work together in a huge crowd of people since they work through rehabilitation and also workshop. So if the patient cannot survive the employment after continuous support from MENTARI and have no potential after the regular assessment, hence MENTARI will end the treatment and send them to the other mental institution that prepares more intensive treatment. So hence, due to these problems, not only that the patient cannot acquire the care they needed, it will also put the IPS worker under pressure to work under a huge number of unstable patients. The last challenge faced by MENTARI is the lack of self-trust and support from the people. So MENTARI also applies the psychosocial treatment whereby family and people supports are extremely vital in order for them to heal. However, there are still a lot of people out there that look at the mental illness as a mere issue. As for example, when a depressed individual posts suicidal thoughts on the social media, people will react and say things like, oh, they are only seeking for attention and making a fuss over simple problems. Well, the truth is that they're actually crying for help and wanting validation for their pain, which people do not even take it seriously. So as important as the support from the people around, a bigger problem comes from the individual themselves. After receiving treatment from normal hospitals and are recommended to get treatment from mental hospitals or institution, they choose not to meet the experts because of the thought that, oh, MENTARI is only for the crazy people. So actually, MENTARI is a health center that accepts walk-in cases and those who wanted to be helped. However, they are reluctant to get treatment because of being ashamed of the diseases, even after having been convinced by the doctors for many times. Hence, it makes it harder for the MENTARI to help these people that do not want to be helped.
There are a few recommendations that we had came up with after our discussion. Employment has been recognized as an important method for facilitating recovery and the care for individuals with serious mental illness. Apart from offering income, it would enhance the social function, self-esteem, living standards, knowledge, compliance with treatment and symptoms. It was also one of the most important elements in psychiatric rehabilitation. Some researchers reported that 43% of British non-working ability candidates are persons with psychiatric disorders. Unfortunately, continuous joblessness among people with mental disorders put a pressure on the economy of Malaysia, both socially and those who do not work. According to National Alliance on Psychological Disorder, these individuals can sometimes encounter lack of understanding and lack of knowledge.
The concern that their supervisors and co-employees may be aware of their mental condition may be so high that people with severe mental illness might also resist further contact with the mental health system for their sake.
Malaysia's mental health and poverty problems include a lack of awareness and stigma of mental health illness among the general public, and also a lack of affordable and accessible mental health professionals and practitioners. Thus, our former Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Wan Azizah Wan Ismail and Deputy Women, Family and Community Minister Hannah Yeoh published a joint press release outlining the government's attempt to enhance mental health. The most significant issue that was discussed is regarding the suicide's decriminalization. The launch of Let's Stop Malaysia awareness campaign to address psychological issues is taking into account the worrying increase in the number of Malaysians, especially young people who suffer from mental illness in silence. This is because of the recent case in which a teenager took her own life on the basis of an Instagram post. As for the fact that there are very limited workers that could support a huge number of patients, it's definitely worrying. It could be the fact that there is lack of funding to pay staff salaries. Research has shown that even though cognitive and psychological diseases are predicted to account for 13% of the global disease burden, the distribution to the mental welfare budget over the last few years has only been 3% of total health allocation in Malaysia. According to the Malaysian health system, research by Harvard and Ministry of Health in 2015 showed that Malaysia only spent 1.3% of government healthcare spending on mental well-being compared to the national rate of 2.8%. In 2016, the Ministry of Health released a healthcare plan of action for 2016 to 2020. However, the focus on resolving this problem is not generally adequate in comparison with the number of cases. It has been shown that 90% of mental disorder patients failed to gain a job even after they went to IPSSA, which refers to the person placement and supported jobs at MENTARI. Therefore, raising the funding and financial assistance for the mental health budget would also be very advantageous, as sufficient funds would pave the way for a greater number of psychiatrists and psychologists to work with companies such as IPS. It is proven that there seems to be a shortage of authorized psychologists and psychiatrists in Malaysia, as majority of Malaysian psychologists have an arts degree in psychology but not a science degree in clinical psychology, leading to a lack of local universities providing such courses. In order to tackle this shortage of supply of qualified mental health professionals, the government needs to increase financing for postgraduate medical courses to attract more students to pursue their psychiatric or clinical psychology career path.
It is reported that Malaysia is among the few remaining countries that it still criminalizes suicidal issues.
As a matter of fact, Section 309 of the Penal Code specifies that someone who tries to commit suicide and performs any act of commit such offense shall be punishable by imprisonment for a period of up to 1 year or fine or both. The government, through the Chambers of Attorney General, is studying the possibility of revising suicide legislation to address such cases globally. Datuk Liew Vui Kiong, a minister in the Prime Minister Department, said that the current legislation, including Section 309 of the Penal Code, required a thorough review and a consultation with a variety of stakeholders. He said this as he was responding to requests from Dr. Kevin Yee Lee Wen, who wishes to understand the position of the government in seeking to change Section 309 of the Criminal Code in order to decriminalize attempted suicides.
MENTARI program is undeniably one of the greatest moves made by the government in order to help those who are suffering from mental health to be able to stand on their own feet and live their normal lives again. The stressful life condition and the inheritance of mental health from family make it a situation that cannot be escaped by nearly anyone. So the negative mental health stigma and discrimination is definitely one of the major factors that contribute to the low success of healing the patient. MENTARI program is a futuristic and revolutionary program whereby it helps in combating mental health issues by controlling it before it gets worse. Not only that, the opportunities and strength of MENTARI that has been thoroughly reviewed made it a relevant program to be conducted regardless facing threats and weaknesses. Hence, it is vital for the public to be open-minded and keep on supporting patients with mental illness issue by first understanding the disease so that we can help the government and play our part as a nation in healing and curing it, because together we can make a difference.